Hailing frequencies open. Welcome to Trek Retrek here on Geek the F Out. I am Captain Johnny.
I'm Ensign Kayla.
And we're here to talk about Season 2, Episode 13 of Star Trek The Original Series, Obsession by James Kirk. TVGuide.com says, for the second time in his Starfleet career, Kirk encounters a cloud-like creature that drains humans of red blood cells and decides this time to pursue and destroy the creature, no matter what the cost.
Dun, dun, dun. Interesting. Indeed. All right. Shall we get into it?
We shall.
Okay.
Let's.
So we start off on a planet, and Kirk and Spock are inspecting a giant rock of titanium, I think it was called. And when Kirk smells a sweet, familiar smell in the air, and my first, just note in general was Spock's hair looks more defined / shorter. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't notice.
Yeah,
no.
It was like...
I noticed that this...
At least in the opening scene.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I noticed that this titanium rock was like foam and glitter.
Yeah. But yet it's
very sparkly.
21.4 times harder than diamonds.
Yes. And they had those like clear plastic forceps. I think we saw them once before for like a specimen that they were putting into a jar. But they just make me chuckle because they look so weird.
Yeah, it reminds me of something else that I don't like. And then my next note is Rizzo, because I love Rizzo the rat. And they realize it's dichronium in the air, which Spock says it can only be created in a lab. So very curious why it's in the air. And the red shirts sweep the area for gases when some gas starts to go off behind them, and then chokes 2 of them to death, and then the third just as he's radioing Kirk. And my next note is that the music is definitely different in this episode, I noticed. I don't know if you noticed that too. It just seemed a little different.
I did not.
Similar, but...
I wasn't paying attention to the music.
Okay. Kirk and Spock find their bodies. Rizzo is still barely alive. They beam back up to the Enterprise. And in sickbay, Chapel and Bones are still trying to figure out what's going on with Spock. And when Spock and Scotty FaceTime Kirk saying it's important they rendezvous soon with the Yorktown because of the important vaccines they have. And that's when Kirk tells Bones to look up tapes from 11 years ago from the USS Farragut, which at this point I was like, oh, okay. So clearly this is the same thing that's back, and something happened with Kirk on the Farragut. That was pretty easy to put together.
Yeah.
They wake up Rizzo, and Kirk interrogates him if he smelled a certain smell. Says he smelled honey and sensed a being drawing strength from him. And then on the bridge, Spock and Kirk discuss what exactly could have caused them to die. And a new security officer comes in, Garvik. And Uhura tells Kirk that Rizzo is dead. Asks the officer if he wants to help figure out what killed him. And he also asks him, oh, was your dad? And so that was another wonder if he's connected to all of this. And I just thought this whole episode kind of had a different vibe from the other episodes. I don't know, just the pacing, the shots, the music was all a little bit different for me. Yeah, some of the shots were definitely different. They definitely had shaky cam shots at some points, and yeah, just some of the transitions between scenes were a little different. I don't know. Anyways, on the planet, security officer and other red shirts span out to try to find the source, and Mist attacks again, and the officer phases it, but still kills one of the guys. And on the Enterprise, they interview Garvik, and he tells them that it looked like a gaseous cloud didn't sense any intelligence from it. Kirk is upset that the officer froze for a second before firing, but he apologizes. But Kirk relieves him of his duties. Duties. On the bridge, Scotty and Uhura once again tell Kirk they need to meet with Yorktown, USS Yorktown, then ask Chekhov if he's found anything on his scanners. And clearly Kirk is very on the edge at this point. Like, he is just like very anxious, very snappy, very hard on the crew, and they all notice it as well at this point. And Spock goes to see Bones for advice in the lab, which was very funny when he does. And Spock tells Bones how half the crew died, including the captain, whose name was Garvik. So, the security officer's dad. And Kirk
we get the connection there.
Yep. And Kirk was on that mission, which apparently was his first deep space mission. Like, it wasn't just a mission, it was his first deep space mission.
Yeah, so I'm guessing that has already happened to the Kirk we've met in Strange New Worlds at this point.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Garvik... I don't remember the name Garvik from Strange New Worlds, so I think there's a different captain on the Enterprise at that time. So I think we're already past this incident in that Kirk's journey.
Yeah, I think so too. Spock tells Bones to study it since there's more than that. And my next note is Kirk is doing a hell of a lot of captain's logs this episode. So I think that was another thing, because usually, there's only maybe like 2 tops, but there was several. And Bones goes to Kirk's quarters telling him that he knows what happened with Kirk and the Farragut, and apparently he also froze and ended up killing 200 people because of him. But Bones tried to tell him that it wasn't his fault. Like, he's just obsessed with it now, which was very nice of Bones to do. And but then he says he's going to make a medical log on Kirk's mental state, saying that he needs a witness when Spock comes in and says Kirk is unfit as captain. And I was like, didn't we just watch this? Didn't we just watch an episode where Kirk was
the aging
unfit?
one?
Yes. Exactly. The deadly years?
Deadly years, yeah.
So I thought that was funny. But luckily it didn't turn into a whole thing anyways. I think it would have been different.
Yeah, it didn't require an entire tribunal this time.
Yeah. It was kind of just smushed. Kirk mentions how it sensed its intelligence as it attacked, and also that this entity has moved. Since this entity has moved, he's worried about it continuing to attack people. Bones says he won't make a log yet, which is good. And Chekhov radios Kirk saying that the entity has left the planet and is flying through space. They follow it at warp 8, and Spock says it's both matter and energy, which is interesting, but not sure if it has intelligence. Meanwhile, Chapel brings Garvik food. He's starting to have the same self-pity as Kirk because he didn't the first time. And she gets mad at him that he won't eat and threatens him if he doesn't, that Bones will have to feed him intravenously.
Yeah.
And apparently this prescription she had from Bones was fake, and I was like, you go girl, very smart. And Bones is very curious about what she did, why she has this random, I forget what it was actually for. It wasn't
data tape.
Yeah, it was some kind of data tape.
For air quality,
else.
something like that. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm just doing psychology."
Yeah.
And Cup Watch 2024. We see that on Garvik's tray that she brings him.
Mm-hmm. I actually missed it this time, so I'm surprised.
Wow, they had a whole shot of it too. I'm shocked.
I'm shocked too. I can't believe I missed cups.
Garvik gets upset and throws the lid, and it changes a switch, which I didn't realize what it was at first, and then obviously we figure out later what the switch did. Battle station.
Yeah, that I noticed. I saw it flipped over to bypass, and I was like, well, that's going to be important later.
I wasn't watching it on big enough a screen to read it. Battle stations are called, and he goes to the bridge where Kirk and Chekhov try to fire phasers and torpedoes at it, but it starts coming at them instead, and nothing's, working. Spock says the shields won't protect them, so some of it comes into the ventilation and has killed men, and now they only have 2 hours left of air. Like, escalates very quickly. Then Bones gets mad at Kirk, and Spock says it's definitely a creature, and says that even if he fired at it, it wouldn't have stopped it, so it wasn't his fault. And Spock goes to Garavik's quarters to tell him it wasn't his fault when he starts to come in through the vent. And and so that's when I was like, oh, that's what he hit. He hit the vent thing. And Garavik runs out while Spock tries to stop it. Apparently Spock is fine, though, because his blood has copper instead of iron in it. And Kirk talks to Garavik after telling him his delay didn't change anything, which you could tell that Kirk was also trying to convince himself of that, too, when he's telling Garavik. So that was a sweet moment. On the bridge, Creature has been flushed out of the ship. They used what was it? They used the radioactive stuff to flush it out. I think it was. Yeah,
so
that's how they got it out.
Why don't we pump the radioactive waste into the ventilation system? That sounds like a great idea. Apparently it didn't hurt anybody on the ship except for the Creature, so I guess it was fine. But I was like, do you think it's good that radioactive waste into your air supply? That doesn't seem... All right, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But now Kirk, they have no idea where it's gone, but Kirk does know where it's going. He has an inkling, and he thinks it's Tycho 4 where to attack the Farragut. And so they message Yorktown that they'll rendezvous in 48 hours, which Scotty isn't happy about. But they discuss how they will destroy the creature. Apparently, it's going to spawn. Which I was like, Spock, how do you know it's going to spawn?
Yeah, they came to that conclusion real quick with no evidence shown to us.
Yeah, they went from knowing absolutely nothing about this to suddenly knowing when it's going to spawn.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little convenient.
Yeah,
but
just a little bit. Sure, Jan.
Yeah.
Kirk volunteers to take the antimatter unit down, and Garavik does too. They set up the unit on the planet, and my thought was, so does this planet not have any other life that they're about to kill? And
apparently not.
Essentially trigger a major extinction event? Okay.
Yep.
I guess not. The creature gets the blood too soon, so Kirk decides to act as bait when Garavik hits him and tells him Kirk tells him he doesn't plan on sacrificing himself because, that's what Garavik was assuming he was doing. So, they let the creature get close to them, and right when he's on the antimatter unit, they energize and detonate. And at first, they don't quite make it back on the ship, but it's hit with shockwaves. But they finally made it back, of course, because plot armor. But I was very worried about Garavik. I'm like, oh my god, are you gonna die the same way your dad did? Which, it's one of those things where I get it. He wants to do it, I'm sure, to kind of avenge his dad in a way, but also you're once again risking your life, so that would really suck if you got killed in the same way. He got lucky.
Yeah.
He got lucky for sure. And Kirk tells Garavik he'd like to tell him stories about his father, and that's the end of the episode. Yeah, very tall. He says tall stories.
Heard from again.
Yeah. Tall stories, because I've heard tall tales, but he said tall stories.
Yeah.
Which was, did he mean tall tales, or?
I'm sure he meant tall tales. I don't know why they wrote it as tall stories, but.
Interesting. Anyways, Do you have any thoughts on the episode? I went through that pretty quickly.
Everybody was real hesitant to like, yeah, I have a note. I'm like, he said to shoot at you, moron, because the dude is just standing there with the gun looking at it, like the phaser looking at it the first time. That is also the first dude to use the tricorder correctly. I don't know if we talked about this a little bit, I think, in one of the first episodes. They've all been holding it with the screen facing out because it's more visually interesting to see the front of the tricorder prop. And Kirk does it in this episode too. They all hold it with the back facing out, which is how it should be used. But this is the first I've noticed them using the tricorders correctly, with the screen at the top facing the person using it rather than the opposite way. Screen down facing away from the person using it.
Yeah. Did they also? I know they used it for Garevik's quarters before they went in there. Did they use it the right way then? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they used it the right way throughout the entire episode.
Oh, cool. Nice
for
catch.
the first time.
Nice. I don't think I had ever noticed that before.
They kept saying red corpuscles, and I'm like, all I could think of, I've heard the term fatty corpuscle before, but never red corpuscle. Corpuscles are just blood cells. Like, all blood cells are corpuscles. So why not just say red blood cells?
They're pronounced differently. Like, they pronounced them like that, but I didn't recognize that at first either. I don't know.
I just thought it was one of those weird things, like tall stories, using the technically correct but not accepted use of the phrase.
There.
Yeah,
not quite there. Yeah, and then it was an interesting one. Once again, we have the mist or kind of entity that doesn't have a tangible body of any sort. So we had that trope again. Also very interesting how they thought that shooting it would somehow do something to it when I'm like, it's literally a mist.
Yeah.
Unless there's something in the phasers that would, I guess, hit molecules in the air in a certain way, or...
I think it was something special with that, because he specifically said use phaser 2 on disruptor B. So I'm guessing something about that particular setting can affect gases, maybe?
No clue. No clue. Yeah, this was an interesting one. I feel like I say that every time.
Yeah, well, that's good. They're all interesting.
Yes.
Not all of them. The alternative factor was not interesting.
No, that was just
that episode was garbage.
Yeah, it was real bad. I mean, it was. I liked how Kirk, it played on Kirk's history with it, and also kind of had stakes with getting the vaccines to Yorktown. Had stakes where, like, people were dying, and which, I mean, that's every episode, but Spock almost died. Kirk and Garevik almost died at the end. I mean, but yeah, I guess that's also every episode now at this point.
I don't think Spock, like, they thought Spock was in danger, but he actually wasn't.
No, he was not in danger.
Because he's got that green Vulcan blood.
That green good blood.
It's good stuff.
But yeah. Should we do lines and moments?
Yeah. So these are the favorite lines and moments. I really only have 2 that I can think of off the top of my head.
I have
that I wrote down
a few. One of them is when Spock comes in asking Bones for advice, and he's like, I need advice, and Bones is like, and I need a drink. And
Yeah,
Spock is like,
that's one of mine.
that doesn't really make sense, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments is when Chapel gets mad at Garvik for throwing the pity party, and her line of like,
Yeah.
oh, like self-pity, that's a like interesting way to start a meal or something like that. Like, that's not a good way to start a meal or first course or something like that.
Self-pity is a terrible first course. Why not try the soup instead? I think was what she said.
Yep. How do you remember those so well? Unless I write it down, I do not remember them.
I was just looking through right before we started recording on Memory Alpha, and that was one of the ones that was quoted on there.
Got it. But yeah, I loved that moment, and just her psychology behind it was great. I loved that moment.
Yeah, her whole thing was a little hint of like the Chapel we're used to seeing in Strange New Worlds.
I was about to say the same thing. Yep. It was cool. So I'm curious to see her character as we go on the crossover between her in TOS versus Strange New Worlds. So yeah. What other line did you have?
Well, the ones where they're on the bridge and I forget exactly how he said it, but he looked at Scotty after he was like, sorry, perhaps I shouldn't have used the word conspire. And Scotty's just like, agreed, sir. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Why are my senior officers conspiring against me? And everybody's like, oh, fuck.
It's like, that's not what we're doing. Stop. I did love Kirk's line to Spock when he comes out of the room and he's like, Mr. Spock, why aren't you dead?
Yeah.
And Bones saying, I bet it left a bad taste in the creature's mouth to Spock about his blood. Which Spock said, I forgot the first word he used.
Colloquially.
Yeah, colloquially, but accurate.
Yep.
Funny. And then Spock's line of, it was cross-circuiting to B that recovered them when they say, thank heaven. And he's like, no, it wasn't them. It was me. And then Bone says, thank pitchforks and pointed ears then. So good.
Yeah, more pointy-eared devil stuff.
Yeah, I guess that must have just been a thing that like devils had pointed ears.
I do remember that phrase now, pointy-eared devil. But yeah, that covers pretty much all of my lines of melons too. We had a lot of the same ones. It's
nice. Great minds think alike. There weren't too many.
They're standout moments. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of the times it's something Bones will say, or Bones and Spock back and forth. Yeah. So yeah, they tend to stand out more. I feel like not a lot of the other characters have those lines necessarily. Every once in a while they do, but most of the time it's the main three. Yeah.
Indeed.
Anyways, moving on.
Well, that will bring us to That's What They Said. So this is your That's What They Said for Obsession. 21.4 times as hard.
What was the size of the thing you saw?
Mind if I come in?
It's coming, sir.
Hold your position.
We'll blow any minute now.
Other parts were more dense.
Yay! It was hard to find
another short but sweet.
Yeah. Next episode, there's even less. It was hard to find ones in these episodes.
All right. Well, that will bring us to episode trivia from Memory Alpha. Let's see. I looked up this episode was because you were talking about how it felt different. It's Ralph Sineski, who also directed This Side of Paradise and Metamorphosis.
No more passes. Okay.
As well as 3.5 more episodes in the series after this.
3.5. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was apparently there was an episode that he was directing and got fired halfway through, but we'll discover that when we get there.
Okay. I'm curious what that's all about.
So
Metamorphosis. Doesn't
metamorphosis, telekinesis.
Metamorphosis.
This episode featured the death of Eddie Passey's character Leslie, who was killed by the cloud creature, but reappears in several subsequent scenes throughout the rest of the series, very much alive. Yes, I went and looked up his appearances. He's got a lot more episodes in, and because at first I'm like, well, maybe that's a production order thing, but no, he's in season 3 episodes too. So maybe he had a twin who had exactly the same name.
Maybe. Who knows?
It says, according to Paskey, a scene in the script in which Leslie is revived by a miracle potion was never filmed. However, no such scene exists in the revised final draft script, and director Ralph Sinesky also confirmed that he did not shoot the scene. So who knows if it's true or not. McCoy's short-sleeved medical tunic bears an engineering insignia instead of the usual sciences division insignia for the entire episode, which it's hard to see most of the time because of the angle of it. But particularly in the scene in Kirk's quarters, the light hits it the right way that you can actually see it's got the curly Q instead of the sciences one or the medical one. The Dichoronium cloud creature was created using a smoke-making machine hidden behind the rocks on the Planet Soundstage set, which the only reason I put this in here is so I can say, well, no shit. Like, yeah. If you look at it, you know exactly what they're doing. Someone's there with a fog machine. Yeah. Like and then there's no mystery to how they accomplished that.
In some of the scenes, they, just rewound the shot, played the shot back.
Yeah. They just ran it backwards.
Yeah. So funny.
And then in an effect unique to the series, the phaser beam that Garivik fires at the creature is outlined with a dark border. That's it. There's not a lot of there's not a lot
that it looked a little different.
I didn't, but I went back and looked and I saw that it does. And it kind of fluctuates between the top and the bottom of it. It's a little weird. And maybe it's because it's the Disruptor B setting. It's Phaser 2 on Disruptor B. So they differentiated it a little bit. Maybe they were thinking. Probably not.
Not.
Yeah, that's it. This is one of those, there's not a lot of super interesting stuff going on. They're just making an episode of television.
Fascinating.
So that will bring us to spoilers without context.
Okay.
And since I went first with That's What They Said, we will bring Ensign Kayla's spoilers without context up on the screen.
Yep. So I did the scene in Avengers Endgame when Hawkeye and Black Widow are, I forget the name of the planet. I'm sure someone will tell me. In there with Red Skull, and one of them has to sacrifice themselves, and they're both fighting over who's going to sacrifice. And it kind of reminded me of the end scene with Kirk and Garivik. Just for a half second. Obviously, there's not a lot of back and forth like there was in Endgame, but a little bit. And then Rizzo.
I can see the connection.
Yeah. And then Rizzo, because Rizzo. I love Rizzo. And then the movie The Mist. Duh. And then Ducky in Land Before Time, the first movie, they used her as bait to draw Sharp Tooth. That's his name, right? Sharp Tooth. To kill him. Which now I'm thinking about that. I'm like, that's kind of morbid for a child movie, but okay. It's animated, whatever. Yeah, that's it. Because, you use live bait.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
I definitely see the connection with the Endgame one, and I like the Rizzo one. I didn't think of that. I was very very generic with mine, I think, which we will bring up on the screen. I have a fog machine because,
Nice.
and then sparklers because that was what the other effect was when they saw it. It was like they overlaid sparklers and smoke together.
Yep.
And then Dracula because it was a gaseous vampire.
Yeah. Good point.
And then Marvin the Martian and the Where's the Kaboom? There's supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom for the there was. They got it, but it made me think of that. So those are mine.
Good. Very good.
Nothing spectacular.
I feel like it kind of reflects the episode.
Yeah. So before we rank the episode, Ensign Kayla, why don't you tell everybody where to find us and what's going on?
Yeah, you can find us at GTFO channel on all the socials, mostly post on Instagram, so if you want to follow us there. If you want to email us, our email is channelgtfo@gmail.com. And yeah, we put out new episodes of Trek Retrek every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. So make sure to always tune into those. If you can't, please watch on the replay if you can. We appreciate it. Leave a comment. Smack that like, smack that subscribe, smack that bell icon, all the usual things. Yeah, I think at this point, yeah, this episode will come out later, so I don't know.
Like the last week of March.
Yeah. Pretty soon we'll get back into Stranger Things, though. Probably in April at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just about it.
All right. So, Ensign Kayla, how do you rank Obsession by James Kirk?
Good question. I say this every time. Because I never know until you ask.
Because you don't think of it up ahead. Yeah.
No, I can't. I think I have to. I truly do have to like discuss it with someone in order to get more of an idea. It could just be the rising Libra in me, but I don't know. Like, it wasn't a bad episode. It just wasn't like super memorable either. Like, it's still entertaining, but I don't think you really need to watch it. It's not as bad as some other ones for sure, but I don't know, especially because we've seen this mist cloud trope several times now. It's just they all start to feel the same. I don't know. I think I'll give it an ensign.
Oh wow, really?
I don't know. I want to give it lieutenant because it's still entertaining. But like, I don't think.
Well, remember, lieutenant is watch it if you have time. So.
Oh, I guess so then.
Ensign is just skip it.
Yeah.
Or it's skippable.
Okay, I guess I'll say lieutenant then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ensign Kayla ranks it lieutenant. Interesting, because I'm gonna give it captain, because of the nebulous gas creatures. I think this is the most interesting one, and it gives a lot of background on Kirk, a lot of character like background for him.
That's true.
So I'm gonna say captain, that this one is a must watch, particularly for the character history for Kirk.
I forgot about the character history. Dang it! Now I want to change it to Commander.
Well, if you want to change it, change it.
Yeah, I think that is kind of important to know. Yeah, I'll say Commander. It's escalated. I'm not gonna give it a captain though. Yeah. Only giving Commander because of the history. That's it.
Yeah. That's fine.
It wasn't bad.
Ensign
Like
Kayla,
I said, it wasn't bad.
Upon further review, Ensign Kayla has amended her rank to commander, and I rank it captain. We'll see what the chat says. The poll results are usually very interesting. These last couple of episodes.
I never know. I truly never know. I wonder if people just
sometimes
click on things.
Sometimes. And sometimes there's more votes than people actually chatting. So we know there's some of you out there who just don't say anything and just click on the poll. We see
That's
you.
fine.
That's fine.
You can learn.
So our next episode will be Wolf in the Fold. Kirk and the Enterprise computer become detectives after Scotty is accused of murdering women on the Pleasure Planet.
Indeed.
This is an episode.
Yes. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you, like I said before, make sure to smack that like, smack that subscribe, smack that bell icon. We appreciate y'all being here, both live and on the replay. And I'm getting really burpy all of a sudden. And yeah, we appreciate y'all geeking the F out with us. Until next time, peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Bye.